I am sure many of you have heard of lost episode creepypastas. They're usually in incredibly graphic episodes that conveys such as a fear of children that was never aired, although some people manage to speak it of viewing or owns the copy of the tapes. Most popular one's example is the SpongeBob one, which Squidward ends up taking his own life, hence in the title. Now, of course, all these lost creepypastas are false, yet I remember a SpongeBob episode that was altered very heavily, but still remains in circulation today. This one-course meal from season 7, in the episode where Mr. Krabs finds out that Plankton is horrified of whales and uses it to his advantage. This is one of the least popular episodes of the show due to the dark nature of the episode. Even the episodes were heavily altered. Now, how would they really have seen this episode before it was edited? Well, it is simple, really. This is actually one of the 7 SpongeBob episodes that was revealed on the internet before it aired on TV. Always a big fan of the show when I was excited of the idea of SpongeBob episode premiere on the internet before television. I rapidly reloaded the Nick page and finally the episode came up. It was also known as Plankton Got Served, although it was eventually changed. Most of the episode is identical to the one circulated today. Plankton manages to break into the Krusty Krab and ties up Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob, and he is about to finally get the secret formula from the SpongeBob, but Mr. Krabs' daughter Pearl walks in, terrifies Plankton, and causes him to run out. Plankton later then claims his ancestors were eaten by whales, and this is why he fears them so. Mr. Krabs soon realizes that the fear that Plankton and decides to use it against him. He dresses himself as his daughter and begins to follow Plankton around, frightening him. Plankton decides that he can no longer take it and decides to make the ultimate decision. Plankton decides to, take his own life, and yes, still in this show today, feel free to watch it. Plankton waits for the bus and then lies on the street, waiting to get ran over. That's when SpongeBob comes over and tries to convince him to continue his existence. This is where the alteration has 2 versions begins. Plankton fails to heed to SpongeBob's words and remains there. In the altered version that was shown, SpongeBob tells Plankton that it was Mr. Krabs and Pearl the whole time, and he gets up. Another altered version of SpongeBob says the same things, but Plankton refuses to believe in him. SpongeBob decides that the only thing he can do to tell the truth is to drag Mr. Krabs outside. Soon after he leaves the typical red bus that comes to speeding along, Plankton sits up and watches it as it hit him, as everything fades into darkness. Plankton finds himself standing on a single platform, overlooking the darkness. In the darkness where he sees whales, all looking up him, and they were members of his family that he can only faintly make out, calling for him to jump down. Plankton then, of course, looks above and sees a light that he could scarcely believe. This would represent him heaven and hell. Plankton reassigns his fate and jumps and plunges down into the darkness, and this is where the episode ends. And the traditional credits that were shown, parallel to Plankton's descent, was into darkness. Now, some of you may say that the show, as soon as it came available online, apparently not fast enough after seeing the episode online. I reloaded the page to find the altered version was shown on the website. I kept reloading, curious as how I've seen the first version. The only answer I can imagine for viewing of the original episode was the creators that uploaded the wrong file. And moments after uploading it, recognizing such, I may be the one who saw this version. I truly do not know these sick abominations of the creators of SpongeBob in mind of this episode. Would a kid's show portray death? Why would a kid's show portray heaven and hell? Nonetheless, the unaltered version is impossible to find. I've searched as hard as I could, but I have failed to find anything eliminated about this episode that I have seen. People had told me that they've seen only the altered version, and they were surprised as the dark themes portrayed the episode. Nonetheless, I know what I saw. Now, I know people would fail to believe me, but people would accuse me of something trying to scare people. People would say that I have no evidence, and there are no photos, and there is no video of this occurrence. I only saw it once, and it was never occurred to me to do such. I know the truth, and I want the others to know as well. Maybe someday someone out there saw this episode as I can affirm it. Until then, I hope you enjoy about reading my experience. And that, my little pretties, was Plankton Got Served, a SpongeBob lost episode creepypasta written by Nakisions. I don't know who it is, but I actually was just trying to pronounce the author's name. If you guys want to know who, well, can pronounce it, feel free to let me know in the comments below. So, anyway, with that being the case and with that being said, my final thoughts on this story. A pretty good, SpongeBob creepypasta, actually. It's actually a pretty good SpongeBob creepypasta, regarding Plankton. Like, most of the SpongeBob Lost episode pastas I've seen either focus on SpongeBob, Patrick, or Squidward. I think there might have been a few, Pearl.avi actually focused on Mr. Krabs and even Pearl. But I haven't found a good, SpongeBob pasta that focused on Plankton. Now, this actually was a really good SpongeBob curry pasta involving Plankton. Like, basically, in this, in this creepypasta, you see is that the person ends up going to the Nickelodeon website, ends up finding out about this episode. Well, Plankton got served, and basically watches the altered version of, what's actually going on in that. So, it's basically a one-course meal, but it's an altered version of it, which, of course, is one of the reasons why, it shows, Plankton doing the things that he didn't do in the original. Now, I have not seen this episode of SpongeBob One-Course Meal in a while, so that's kind of actually one of my reasons my mind is kind of foggy at this point, because I can't even remember this episode really much. So, I definitely have to say, when I first saw this episode, I actually found this one to be rather interesting. Like, it has an interesting concept of, what's going on in this creepypasta, involving Plankton, which is pretty awesome, if you ask me. It's a pretty interesting concept of this pasta. The author who, basically sat there and, wrote this story actually put a lot of believability and a lot of effort into the story. So that's kind of why, that's the main reason why the story is actually well made and detailed. It actually played out pretty well with the whole concept itself. So I definitely have to say, I really do appreciate the fact that this story was not really cliched. There are a few issues I would have to point out why I wasn't crazy on this story, which I will be getting to that in a little bit. Now, mainly the reason why I actually found this story to be rather good was the fact that the grammar was really well made and detailed. The sentence structuring actually helped out well. The storyline was beautiful. And I definitely have to say, I really thought this story was amazing. And it was really well made and detailed. It was amazing. It was pretty good for what this one was. So, anyway, I guess I could say, with that being said, I actually really do appreciate how good this story was. So, with that being the case, and with that being said, I actually was gonna say right now, I kind of remembered, Andal narrated this, I guess you could say, back in I guess it might have been 2019 or something, or, I don't know, remember. I think I touched this story at one point, but I don't remember. But I do remember Andal sat there and narrated this story, and I wanted to go have a look at it, so here I am right now having a look at this story. It's actually really well made in detail. It actually played a good concept and a good part in this story. Now, it is believable. I'm not gonna lie. It's very believable with this whole concept of, involving Plankton. Now, this is actually one of the best lost episode pastas of SpongeBob involving Plankton. Now, with that being the case, I actually really liked a lot of good stuff in there. There was most of the positives. Now, there are a few negatives that I do have to say of why I wasn't crazy on this story. Now, I'm not trying to sound, harsh or anything like that, but I'm only saying this because, that's just what I do. I review these stories so I could sit there and help people get better with their writing, as well as, write my own stories. Sometimes I do while reviewing my own work, but depends on how old it is. But, yeah, let me go ahead and explain, this. Now, I know there's a lot of other narrations that have done this story. So many other pastas people have sat there and narrated it, so it is quite popular pasta. So I could definitely sit there and say is that one thing I could definitely say that the story, kind of, I didn't really care for was that the part is that mentioning a lost episode creepypasta in a creepypasta. Like, I know, one SpongeBob episode involving Squidward taking his own life. I'm not saying the actual title, because, of reasons. being mentioned into the pasta. And, mentioning creepypastas in a creepypasta, I don't even really need to say this, but I'm going to go ahead and just kind of explain and express my opinion. Saying, a creepypasta, a lost episode or something in a creepypasta or lost episode pasta, it does not work. I don't know what it is, but it does not work with any story. Like, maybe there might have been a few exceptions of that, but most of the time it just does not work. Mentioning a creepypasta and a creepypasta, it just does not work. That's just something I would want to point out for anyone who's writing stories. It just doesn't work. I'm just saying that for those who are considering and writing stories, maybe you guys can, take a look at this of what you should and shouldn't do. Now, mentioning a creepypasta and a creepypasta is not, the best route or any good route to go to. Unless if you're doing a troll pasta or something, or a funny pasta, maybe that would be a good exception. But other than that, it just doesn't work. I just thought I would, go ahead and point that out. But other than that, the fact that, the people are still, trying to find out, about this episode, even though they don't believe in this individual who saw the episode, I could definitely say that the ending was okay, but it could be a little bit more explainable in my opinion. I know there was a reason why it ended off like that, the way it did. And I'm not the one to judge. Like, I have done lost episode movies that kind of sat there and ended like that. But what I would personally say if I were to make something like this and make the ending is that if someone else also encounters this episode and wants to share this experience with somebody, and then the protagonist ends up finding out that this person actually saw that episode too and interacts with them. At least that how I would put it. At least to me that is. Not trying to sound, rude or harsh to the author here. I'm just saying that for the sake of, getting out my opinion on the story. Now, it's a good story, not gonna lie, it's a pretty good story, but if the fact that, lost episode pasta, creepypasta, or lost episode pasta being mentioned in the pasta was kind of unnecessary, but other than that, the story does need, just a little polishing up. Not a big major one, but just kind of a little bit of one. Mainly maybe take out the creepypasta lost episode being mentioned in it, and then that way the story would be better. Well, just a bit better. The story is still good the way it is, don't get me wrong. The story was still good the way it is, so yeah. Anyways, with that being the case, and with that being said, I'm gonna sit here and say this right now. This is simply my own personal opinion. And yeah, and if you disagree with me, that's fine too. Before I go to my final rating to the author, which is Nakisions, you did a good job with the story. If you think your story is fine the way it is, then that's fine. If you think your story is okay, that's totally understandable. And anyways, with that being the case, and with that being said, yeah, like I'm gonna say here and say, I think I already said this earlier, but for those who are not sure, I'll say this again. This is simply my own personal opinion, and if you happen to disagree with me, that is fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions in regards to these creepypastas, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. My final rating of this story would have to be a 8 out of 10. I'm only giving this an 8 out of 10 is because, the creepypasta, a creepypasta, lost episode being mentioned in a creepypasta wasn't really necessary. And another thing too would be if the ending was, kind of had more explained detail. That's just all I have to say. But other than that, the story was actually pretty well made in detail, and it was very good. So anyways, with that being the case, and with that being said, what did you guys think about this creepypasta? Did you all enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what would you have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section down below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. And if you happen to be brand new here on this channel, be sure to like, comment, subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload so that you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro because I'm out.